Hey friends, thanks for tuning in once again to the E2 Effective Elders podcast. In this session, we are going to learn about the importance of vision, mission, and core values. Our thanks to CDF Capital, who make this podcast entirely possible, to elders and church leaders across the country and around the world. Thanks, CDF, for your investment in leaders.
Hey everyone, welcome to the E2 Effective Elders podcast. E2 is devoted to coaching your elder team to win by providing biblical and practical resources in authentic relationships. E2 wants nothing more than to equip you to move God's kingdom forward in the place you're serving Jesus. Visit us at e2elders.org and please share this good word with others.
Hey friends, we are blessed today once again to have Pete Brown with us of Ash Interactive. Mm-hmm. Pete is an elder at one of our partner churches, Ben Davis Christian Church.
Right.
And Pete owns a marketing company, and they are assisting in telling our story in very powerful ways. So Pete's going to help us in this conversation about vision, mission, and values. Do you think that's very important? How about for you as an entrepreneur?
Totally. I mean, it really is what steers the ship, right?
Mm-hmm.
I mean,
Yeah.
because any move that I make as a business owner, as an elder, even as somebody offering advice to friends and family who are involved in their own organizations, it's going, well, what's your mission? What's, help me see where you're headed, and then I can help you figure out how to steer.
Very good.
Yeah.
Well, maybe in this conversation, there'll be something helpful for you to share with your many clients.
Always.
There you go. Well, have you ever been in a tall building, a skyscraper? Tell me about it. Where was it?
Gosh, I'm thinking of like the Sears Tower, in Chicago, right?
Yep.
And I believe that was the first one that had the glass floor that I went to as well.
Oh, very good.
Yeah.
Well, that's interesting that you cite that particular building. Many years ago, shortly after it opened, I remember we went there to see this state-of-the-art accomplishment. And when we were there was a display explaining how deep the foundation went in order to support a building that soars so many stories in the air.
Yeah.
Now, what we want to understand about vision, mission, and values, they serve as a foundation for the church. As a matter of fact, there are two foundations. This podcast and our next one are two issues, foundations that really dovetail into one another. We're going to talk about vision, mission, values in this conversation because that's who you are as a church or as a business. That's who you are. It's your identity, vision, mission, values. Then, in our next podcast, we're going to talk about 3-year strategic planning. Because once you know who you are, then you develop where you're going.
Absolutely.
A 3-year plan, all right? So that's our direction. Now, to help us out in our thinking, I have this book here, Start With Why by Simon Sinek. Does that ring a bell to you? Have you heard of it?
I've heard of it.
It's a great book. Out of all the many books that I've read, I would have to say this is easily in the top 10.
Okay.
It's not a book about Christian leadership. Simon Sinek does not present himself as a follower of Jesus, but what he does present in this book is a pretty radical way of approaching leadership. And in essence, he describes what he calls the golden circle theory. As a matter of fact, this book is the follow-up to a TED Talk that he did.
Okay.
Last I looked, it is the second most popular TED Talk on TED.com.
Wow, okay.
And in his talk of 20 minutes or less, he says that he has this golden circle theory. And he says most companies start from the outside and they know what products they make, what services they provide.
Sure.
And out of their many constituents, their employees, some of them can go to that next ring and they can tell you how they do what they do, how they make certain products or how they offer certain services. But only a mere handful can go to that innermost circle and tell you why it is that they do what they do.
Okay.
His theory is companies that would reverse this direction and they would start with why, and they would move outwardly, they're going to impact their culture or their industry. So in his book, he mentions Southwest Airlines. He mentions Apple. For example, Apple, their why? They're going to impact the world with technology. Well, how are they going to do that? Then we move out to this ring. They're going to develop user-friendly, attractive, moderately priced, high-quality pieces of technology. Let's go to this outer ring. Well, what are those pieces of technology? iPhone, iPad, iTouch, iTunes, computers of different kinds, a watch, and so on. They're going to keep filling this what ring with pieces of user-friendly, moderately priced, high-quality, attractive pieces of technology that will impact the world.
Yeah.
All right?
Wow. It
Start
seems
with
to make
why.
Sense, doesn't it?
Doesn't it?
Yeah.
Absolutely. Now, think with me.
Sure.
Vision, mission, and values.
Okay.
VMV. The vision of the local church is the why that congregation exists.
Okay.
And that vision statement needs to be short so that people could probably what?
Remember it.
Exactly, to remember it. You want to keep it short so people could memorize it, whether we're talking about an 89-year-old widow in the church or an 8 or a 9-year-old child.
Sure.
Short enough to be memorized, remembered. It should, secondly, be scriptural. It doesn't mean that we use actual words out of Scripture, but it should be a reflection of scriptural truth. And then thirdly, it needs to be measurable. We would want to ask ourselves, is our why becoming a reality?
Okay.
Are we accomplishing this dream? Is it becoming true for us? Does that make sense?
Absolutely.
Okay. So once we have this vision statement, the why we exist, then we move to this next ring, how. How does this dream come true? So how is our mission? And our mission pursues our vision.
Okay.
And this likewise has to be brief so that we can know it by heart. And then finally, our what ring are the core values, VMV, vision, mission, values. And these values are how we operate. So we have computers here on the desk. They're operating because they have an OS, an operating system.
Sure.
We don't see it, we don't know, we don't see it, we don't hear it operating, but we know it's functioning because it's recording this podcast right now.
Yep.
Okay. So these are the values and are what's going to guide and direct a church or a business that you're working with. And we want to keep it as a short list. We don't want it to be too long because if it's too long, you can't what?
Yeah, remember it.
Can't remember it.
Sure.
So if you're sitting in an elders meeting and you've got 12 core values, you can't memorize 12 core values.
Right.
It's interesting. Disney World has 4 rank-ordered core values.
Okay.
4. The first one, most people would never guess, is safety. If you go to Disney World and you break your leg on the tilt-a-whirl and you go home in a cast, you're not going to be a happy consumer.
True.
Because you just took the grandkids there and you spent $150,000 for a week at Disney. So number 1 is safety. Number 2 is courtesy. Everybody, whether you're a client, a customer on that campus, or you're an employee, you're going to be treated with utmost courtesy. Number 3, now comes the show.
Okay.
They're going to take that little girl and transport her into being a princess in the Magic Kingdom. So it's the making of the memory, it's the fun, it's the show. And then number 4, it's efficiency. That's their 4th core value. They got to turn a profit if they're going to exist. And
Sure.
one would think that they're going to exist for quite some time.
Oh, yeah.
So vision, mission, values. Now, at the Creek, we have had vision. Our vision statement is just 2 words, transforming community. And that would be short so that people could what?
Remember it.
Remember it. It is certainly a reflection of Scripture. Do not be conformed any longer to the pattern of this world, but be transformed by the renewing of your mind, Romans chapter 12. Paul says, if anyone is in Christ, he's a new creation. The old is gone, the new has come, in 2 Corinthians 5. So transforming. And we want to be doing life in community right here inside the church with one another. So if we are in authentic brotherhood, living lives of authentic accountability, that's going to be transformative
Absolutely.
in the church.
Sure.
And if people in the church live that way, we have every greater likelihood of transforming community one step outside of the church.
Sure.
So there's the dream we want to come true. It
Okay.
produces excitement in people. You mean my marriage could get better? You mean I could conquer this addiction,
Sure.
etc.? So then that dream, that vision, our why, how is it going to happen? By engaging the lost, making disciples, showing compassion, just like Jesus did. That's exactly what he did. For example, he engaged the woman at the well. He started the conversation. He made disciples of his followers. And he did it always in the context of unconditional love,
Sure.
compassion. And then we have 5 rank-ordered core values. The Bible is our final authority. That being the case, we're going to strive to be a holy people, having been made in the image of God. We're going to be culturally relevant, trying to close the gap between ourselves and those who are not yet followers of Jesus. We're going to be faithful stewards with all that God has entrusted to us, and we're going to pursue excellence. Doesn't mean that we have the best of everything, but we're going to strive to be quality in ministry. So vision, mission, values. What's exciting, this really has been very effective at the Creek. We started doing this in about 1991. Now, this is interesting. So let me show you a picture here. This, would you recognize that lady?
I
Your
don't
wife
think I
would.
would. Oh.
This is Betty Crocker.
Betty Crocker. Okay.
Meet Betty Crocker, all right? So Betty has been around since the late 1920s.
Okay.
What observation would you make about Betty?
I would say, well, Betty is illustrated. Betty is, I don't know, always wearing red and white in general.
This is her current picture.
Okay. She doesn't look like she's aged a whole lot, to
No,
be
she's
quite
found
honest.
the fountain of youth. I think she found the fountain of youth.
There you go.
Yeah, but you made a good observation there a moment ago.
Yeah.
She's always what?
Wearing red and white.
Yes, always wears red and white. What about her hair?
It's always very well done.
Yes, it's short. It's well done. Is she a blonde?
Brunette.
She's always a brunette. So here's the issue. Betty, her essence does not change. Her essence, only her appearance. She always looks relevant, up to date for the era in which she was presented.
Yeah, okay.
And that's vision, mission, values. So our current vision, mission, values, these have been around for probably 5 years, but they have been Betty Crockered now for the 5th time in 30 years.
Wow.
As a matter of fact, Dan Hamill, our new pastor at the Creek, he's launching right now in the early part of 2020 for the 317. So 1 is our vision, 3 is our mission, and 7 are our priorities. What's interesting, Dan and the leaders of the Creek have Betty Crockered vision, mission, values. We spiritually are all the same. He's just presenting them in a most unique and creative, relevant way.
Yeah.
317 is our what?
Area code.
It's our area code.
Yeah.
So the Creek is 4317, and it's more than an area code.
Yeah.
We are 3 mission, 1 vision, 7 priorities.
Yeah.
And these are very powerful. So, very creative way
Yeah.
to Betty Crocker vision, mission, values.
Yeah, it's a great idea.
This is foundational to the well-being of the local church, and very important to bring about health and direction. You mentioned a little while ago, Pete, that a business, they have to know the direction of the church.
Yeah.
So,
Well, I think it does a great piece. That piece, too, specifically tying into the piece you just showed us, is also very relevant.
very.
I mean, it's changing. You're not 1950s Betty Crockering,
Right,
right? You're
yeah.
you're using more contemporary visuals. Using area code has been something that's been used in the last 5 or 6 years to really kind of show pride in where you're from.
Absolutely.
And that's across the country. And so I feel like the imagery on that is going to speak to somebody who's very current and very connected.
Absolutely.
And so I think it's a wise move.
And the Creek made thousands of these yard signs that say 4317, and then it says more than an area code.
It's cool.
It's a good marketing twist.
I agree. Yeah, good
and
idea.
You're the king of marketing. So back to that tall skyscraper.
Yeah.
Vision, mission, values is a foundation to healthy ministry. Now, we would be happy at E2, we've done this many times with churches, help articulate vision, mission, and value statements. If you've never done it, it's really a good process. It's a fun process. And takes, if you've never done it, takes about 8 to 10 hours doing it together with an elder team and a staff team with volunteers, key volunteers from the church. You want to have about 15 to 20 people around a table in a room for 8 to 10 hours, and an incredible vision, mission, and value statement can be produced. It might be that you do have vision, mission, and values, some form of them, but you know it's time to Betty Crocker them. And we would be privileged to draw alongside and help you, Betty Crocker, that vision statement or that mission statement that's now 12, 15 years old, and you know that people aren't using it or they don't know it.
That sparks an interesting point or concept. How often should this be revisited? I mean, is it revisited annually to see if it is sort of timeless, or is it the kind of thing that you should say every 3 years we're going to come up with something different?
That's a great question. Barna. So George Barna and his research ministry, they say that our culture now in America is changing. It's morphing in a cycle of every 3 to 5 years. So it would be a legitimate question to ask every 3 to 5 years, is our vision statement, our mission statement, our core values, is all of that vernacular that fits the day and age?
Yeah.
Is it effective? And most importantly, we have to ask ourselves, are we on mission or are we on mission drift? And that's the importance of these. That's why it's foundational to the health of a church.
Sure.
If a church does not know who they are, their identity, why they exist, how they're going to accomplish that mission, and in what manner of value are they going to pursue that mission and vision, if they cannot articulate that, it's kind of like hunting deer with buckshot. And you pull the trigger with buckshot, and all that buckshot goes in a wide direction. If we got a slug in that shotgun, like a clear-cut vision statement, mission statement, and core values, we might be more of a direct hit on that which we're trying to accomplish.
Yeah. Well, and I can speak to Ben Davis's experience a little bit. We went through this whole process with Gary leading us, and it was a lot of fun. You know, I think a lot of times, especially folks who have been in corporate America and think about a strategic plan, and it can be a little daunting, but it was a fantastic way to get our eldership, our church staff and leadership, and a lot of key volunteers all plugged in. So it kind of helped build up a little bit of rapport and camaraderie amongst the key players at church, and we came out on the other side with a lot of great ideas and again revisiting what's going to help us steer our direction.
It produces momentum.
Definitely.
Produces some excitement. And ministry is meant to be fun.
Yeah.
It's meant to be fun. Yeah, absolutely. So if we can be of help, please give us a call. Visit us on our website at e2elders.org. There on our landing page, you'll see our phone numbers. You'll see a link for contacting us via email. Visit us on Facebook at E2Elders, please. And if you would, if this has been helpful to you, would you like us? Would you share this podcast with somebody? We want to keep telling the story so that story goes far and wide that the church is always at her best when we are working well with one another. We're all on the same team, so let's do all that we can to make Jesus forever the famous one. Thanks for tuning into the podcast. Blessings to you.